2. Hey, everybody, this is Paul with the Curators Podcast, and I am very, very happy to have with us and honored to have with us Sensei John Mirrione. John is the president of Harmony Power Now, a nationally recognized anti-bullying organization that is on a roll in making waves across the country to address the concept of bullying and all the implications that go along with it. John has great experience in this, and I'm going to ask him to talk about that in a moment. So, John, welcome.
It's great to be here and an honor to be on this podcast.
Oh, well, we're grateful to have you with us. Harmony Power Now. This is an organization that's been a long time in the making. Mm-hmm. And I know it's been based on some of your personal experiences in life. Would you spend a couple of moments just explaining to us how it is you became a sensei? What drove you to that? What your life experience was like that motivated you to stand up for such a noble cause?
I appreciate the questions. Well, first of all, it's the Harmony Power Foundation. And I'm the chairman, and I have a wonderful board of directors that have really given me the support that a lot of these things are happening. But I will say to you that my childhood started as a struggling childhood with a mother who struggled with drug addiction. You know, she's been clean for like 40-something years, 50 years. And but we were on the streets together for 3 years. And it was around the late 60s, early 70s. And that was that trauma as a childhood, that experience, everything you could think about as far as childhood trauma became my power. My father gained custody of me. I was 8 years old, down in Brooklyn, living in like a low income neighborhood, but lots of fights. I mean, it's Brooklyn, right? So you've got Italian and Irish neighborhood, and they just can't seem to stop beating each other up. But it was one situation in particular where the child took my head and slammed it into the curb till the blood was coming out of the back of my head. My mother comes out with a broomstick to chase the bully away. This is like out of a movie, but that was my life. My dad comes home because he started doing this Japanese karate system because my great uncle was a Vietnam veteran. He went there 3 tours of Vietnam. He was like a special forces guy and assassin for the government. Like he was this military guy who did martial arts and was a world champion. John, you got to do martial arts, he tells my dad. My dad's like a yellow belt, and but he was a street fighter with a yellow belt. He's like, you know, you got to do martial arts now. He says that's it. So he took like a duffel bag and he stuffed whatever he could inside the duffel bag, hung it from the ceiling in the basement, got me some boxing gloves. That was it. Knuckle push-ups on the concrete outside. I was 8 years old, and after 2 months of that bully, that same one, came to me and he said, "I want to fight you again." I was like, okay. We're going to fight on glass because in Brooklyn, they have to rev it up in Brooklyn. That's, you know. And the bully came at me and I hit him as fast as I could, like Sugar Ray Leonard, and hit him so many times and he just fell on top of me. And I thought I was in trouble, but I realized that he was in trouble. He just got up and walked away. That was the beginning. It was violence meeting violence, which I don't applaud. It's the last resort. It's when everything's failed, then that's what happens. So then I got into other things. I did martial arts with my dad, got my black belt, competed, became a competitor to some extent when I was younger. But I got involved in breakdance, and breakdance was a very big thing for me. And I didn't know how to perform with dance, but I learned between the martial arts and the breakdance. And I decided that I wanted to join the military. I got so good at the breakdance and the martial arts, I formed this particular martial arts breakdance act. I went to Vegas to visit my mom, who lived in Vegas at the time, won this competition in Vegas, like second place in the biggest competition. Going to join the Air Force, and I went to the recruiter, and he said, and by the way, all these things, it was my rise out of bullying, because I got so good at fighting that I didn't fight anymore. I was bullied. Go back to the bullying part. From age 8 to age 17. So the martial arts gave me the power to stand up, and the dance gave me the freedom to express. And both were very empowering for me. So that combination was a tremendous combination. So it led me to entering the United States Air Force. But I wanted to be an entertainer like Elvis Presley and Bob Hope. And the recruiter laughed. He's like, who joins the military to be an entertainer? So he says, well, you're going to have to go to your first base and win first place. Then you're going to go to another base. You got to win first place. You have to be like it's like the special forces of entertainment. And I said, fine, sign me up. I signed me up. So I go to my first military base, and there's a drill sergeant. I'm on duty at 3:00 in the morning. And he comes over and whispers in my ear, and he says, what's your job going to be, airman? And I said, sir, I want to be an Air Force entertainer, sir. He said, entertainment? He's African American. This is the South. And I'm like from Brooklyn. I'm like skin is light skin from Brooklyn, Italian. What kind of entertainment? I said, I dance. He said, dance? He was really upset. I dance too, right? And he takes me to his office, and he gets his boom box. He slams it on the table. He says, I'm giving you an order to dance right now. And he clicks the button. It's 3:00 in the morning. Everybody else is sleeping. I was on guard duty, and he's like got me dancing in his office. So I do the dance routine. I flip into a split. I like the Nicholas brothers. I like doing the acrobats with the spinning kicks and that kind of fun stuff. So he clicks the button. He goes, all right. He goes, you sit down, airman. He says, so what you're going to do? You're going to go to your next base. You're going to have to win first place. Gave me the whole thing like the recruiter. Another base, win first place. I said, okay. I said, thank you, sir. I go back to sleep. So about a week or two later, actually, I'm sorry, not the week or two. The next day, we're outside at San Antonio, Texas, blazing hot. And I'm out on the front line. All the soldiers line up. We're sweating. They make you stand out there like for 2 hours with sweating, like people are like falling down. And he comes out with the boombox. I'm like, no, he's not doing that. Yeah, yes, he was. And he gives me an order to dance in front of the troops. And they can't laugh. They get in trouble. So I'm out there breakdancing, doing my whole routine with the music. And he clicks the button. He's get back in line, airman. They're all trying not to laugh. It's a true story, just like that. So about a week now, I go back a week later.
I see a movie script around this. I can't lie. It sounds like something that has to be memorialized in that way.
Yeah, no, it really happened just like this way, and no exaggeration. Then it was like a week later, and I see a sign on the other side of the base, which was active duty military. They were active duty, right? So you can't go on the other side of the base. You have to stay in the base where they have your head shaved, and you're doing your workouts every morning, and you're being screamed at 24/7. It's basic training. But we're on a bus, because it's transient. And I look and I see a breakdance sign on the other side of the base. So I said to my colleague, I said, I got to go compete there. They're going to have a competition. He goes, we're in basic training, dude. He goes, we'll be peeling potatoes in jail. I said, no, I got to go over there. I says, hey, he's like, how are you going to do that? I said, well, we have break time at 5:30. Competition's at 6:00. I can get there, compete, and come back. I'll go there, I'll win, and I'll come back. He goes, you're crazy. I said, well, I got to do that, right? So he followed me to the competition. I turned and looked around. He's the guy that said I was crazy, followed me. I go across the base. They don't even recognize me. They don't notice that I had a cap on. They didn't notice that my head was shaved. But I went in there, won first place, and left. It was literally I went into the competition after it began, but they threw my name in, got out there, did my thing, went to the other side of the base, and that's how it started. And I go to my first base after basic training. I win first place. They treated me like I was a celebrity. Colonels and generals followed me around like a fan base as I was performing on the base. Letters. Then I flew to Barksdale, Louisiana, competed there, won first place.
What year was this, John?
This is all 1985. And then I traveled the United States as a Air Force entertainer, where you set up the stage, you tear the stage down. All the stuff was very, very empowering for me. I mean. And
you were just around 20 years old at this time?
I was 19, turning 20 at that time. Yep, 19, turning 20. Yeah, and then
How long did you do this in the military? What was your
That was like a good chunk of my first year. That was so there were several months that I did in the first year. Then I ended up doing something else in my career. Like my last year, I ended up in charge of a building with 120 soldiers. Basically, I got so popular that somebody came to me. I was working like a desk job, and he saw how I was dealing with people, and he said, "You know, we need you to run one of our buildings." And I said, "What building? What are you talking about?" He's like, "John, don't worry about it." He goes, "You're good enough. You do martial arts. You know how to talk to people. We've got fist fights going on the weekends. They're fighting with each other. The building's in shambles. You got to clean it up. You got to bring it back to where it needs to be." I said, "Yes, sir." He brings me in front of colonels and generals. He gets a waiver signed, and I'm running this building in my last year. I revamped the building, stopped all there's fist fights between military police and the medical unit, and I created harmony. Basically, I had meetings with them, and I used extreme like incentive plans. Like if people did the right thing, I had positive things that I would do, and if they didn't do the right thing, I would let them go. They would be shipped off. Like there's a lot of power in the military. Like I would be able to bring people to work for me that came out of the prison. So I knew people that were in trouble. I would go to the jail cell and say, "Can he come help me out?" Take him out of the jail, bring him to the building. And I was only 23 at the time doing that kind of job as a building manager. So it was a lot of experience that you get where you could do anything. So if you can handle 120 lives in a building at 23, it really sets the path for leadership, which is what I ended up doing my whole career. Yeah.
And so coming out of the Air Force, you had a perception, it seems, about bullying and the impact going back to your youth, but even coming out of your experience up until that point, that bullying was not only not a good thing, but something that had serious social implications and consequences for many people. You experienced that. I experienced that myself. I was not a Brooklyn kid. I was a Queens kid, and I had been bullied quite a bit myself. Also a fellow Paisan, and I also was a bully. You know, it was this sort of rung on the ladder upbringing where, you know, if I perceived somebody on the rung below me, I felt the right to bully them, and I allowed myself to be bullied by others. And I didn't understand any of this at the time. It was more like a survival mechanism, a way to get through. And I do understand a lot more about this today, and it's such a very important topic. So could you talk about this idea of bullying as it manifests in our society today, how it relates to the concept of fear, right? What does true courage look like to you? You know, I'm not sure that enough people understand this. You know, some people will say, well, you know, for lack of a better phrase, grow up and be a man, right? Mm-hmm. That, you know, adversity makes us stronger. And I'm sure there's a lot of truth in that. I wouldn't dispute that. But I would suggest that, you know, bullying can have traumatic consequences. We do not have the right to bully another person. And when a person is bullying someone else, they're not really always aware that they are bullying. They're you know, trying to maybe gain recognition or prove a point or what have you. So could you talk about some of this stuff and how it relates to your organization?
There's so much you said. There's so much that you've triggered as far as like the things that you're asking me. So there's so much I have to offer. First, let me also mention, because this is a prelude, is that I am the owner of Harmony by Karate in New York City. I've had it for 30 years this year, 30 years full-time, Manhattan, Upper West Side. I was a Reebok athlete with Reebok Sports Club for 20 of those years. One out of 200 athletes selected for this club, all the celebrities and everybody you can think of, and it was in that gym. And I was one of the 200 selected. So it's been a blessed career. But having that amazing career and seeing the biggest crisis in America right now is the bullying crisis and the mass shootings, and they're both one thing, right? So I learned that by not just by reading about it and watching it, but saying I live a good life, and I'm very blessed. And I said I cannot watch that what goes on because anything I've seen on TV pretty much happened to me. I counted. I had 17 street fights. Half of them I lost. So when you lose, it's a horrible thing. I've been knocked out plenty of times, and knockouts from hitting a wall, not just hitting your head, hitting your back, getting hit in the chest can knock you out. People don't realize it's not just getting hit in the head. So I've had many blackouts from fights and very bloody situations when you're in a street fight in the city. So that being said, I got on a plane, and well, first of all, my campaign was launched on Oprah, the Oprah network. It was a radio network.
Right.
It was Derek Chang was the radio host. Launched it there. I went to Chicago to one of these schools, and I went into the school, and I said to the principal, I said, I want your most challenging kids in a room with me. And she looked at me, she says, you sure you want to do that? I said, yeah, I want to do that. So the assistant principal came in. There was about maybe 7 or 8 kids that came into the room. And as they're coming into the room, the heckling began, making comments towards me, making, gestures, flexing, So I looked at all of them. I said, I think all of you need to sit down right now. I'm not the one. So all of you sit down in your seats, be quiet. And I said that very direct, in a fearless way. And they all sat down. I said, I want to go around the room and get to know you. All I want to know is your name. That's it. And they each said their name. And I told them my name. And I said, look, if you cooperate with me, there's a very big reward at the end. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you need to cooperate. I want to get to know each one of you just a little bit. Tell me about you. So I went around the room hearing, just listening. Took this group of kids into the assembly. There's like an auditorium. They helped me clear the stage. They helped me to prep up for the school coming in to do this assembly. I hired a publicist, and all the media comes, and everywhere I went, there was always media, and that was just the part of it. But it was just to kind of create the awareness. So they finished, and they did such a good job. I said, you know what? All of you get the front row. They looked at me. I said, yeah, you got box seats. Go ahead. So they were in that front row and did my presentation, my talk. There was one child that spoke out in that audience. Never forget, it was this girl, and she said, what do you do if you feel like you want to take your life, like along those lines, like if there's an issue, almost like it was her, but she didn't say it was her. And I talked to her. I said, it's very important to talk to someone that you know and trust right away. It's very important to have that conversation. So these were
conversation that many people need to have today too.
Yeah, because there's moments in our life where we feel extremely vulnerable. We wonder, why am I here? And as soon as you question your value is immediately when you need to talk to somebody, because we all have value. And once you reinforce your own personal value, you feel stronger again. But just to answer your question earlier, the bullying and victim is in all of us. Everybody has moments where they're not proud of, right? Parental bullying, corporate bullying, political bullying. Bullying is it's been this idea of using fear and intimidation to control another person has been part of the human condition since the beginning of humankind. We're now entering in a different kind of era where we're starting to realize humanity's evolving and is saying, hey, we don't want this, because we're looking at it with its ugly head through social media. We can see everything. We're like, bullying, abuse. First it was abuse, now it's bullying. Everything's bullying, right? So, but yeah, I can get a lot more out of my children by having a loving, respectful conversation than I can using fear and intimidation and tactics to try to control them. Same with my business of 30 years. I've only let go of 3 people I can remember, or 4, but 3 times. I had 3 instances where I fired somebody in a 30-year span. I don't know any business that does that, because I was willing to go out of my way to cultivate and have those conversations. That's the kind of leadership the world is lacking. I've been blessed to teach Look, my school in Manhattan, this Harmony by Karate school, it's a leadership school, and we teach empathic and inclusive leadership. That's what it's all about. It's about teaching people to lead with their heart, so they're not bullying, they're not controlling. It's about embracing all the uniqueness of being human without judging it, right? This struggle with the transgender community, all it's so ridiculous to me. I have all that diversity in my space for years. I don't have any of those issues. I don't try to understand what I'm not. If I am not in that person's shoes, I do not understand. And those who like either make fun of someone because they don't understand it or say, I understand you, is insulting them either way. I don't understand. I'm not in your shoes, but I will respect what I don't know. And you have the same human rights that I have. And that's the way that I've always been. So I've always cultivated leaders and future leaders in the city through the martial arts, through Harmony by Karate, it's on 81st and Broadway. I thought I'd mention that because
you also had some, can you talk about Elizabeth, New Jersey and your involvement there as well?
Exactly. So I did this 17-city tour that it led me to Elizabeth, and I was in Elizabeth and Bayonne. Bayonne was the first to adopt Harmony Power. Elizabeth would not only adopted it, but it became the first mandated anti-bullying program in a worldwide city. What Harmony Power is, this solution to bullying, this is like the only real solution I've seen in the world. Not saying there aren't other solutions, but what I realized from traveling to the 17 cities is we're very good at recognizing negative behavior in a profound way. You get suspended, you get expelled, and you go to jail. And I said, why doesn't the system have a way in where children's positive behavior is being recognized, not just being recognized, but being shown? For example, children that do what they love to do, their passions, and them expressing their passions to their environment, to their peers, and them sharing that giving nature that's what needs to be recognized and awarded. Because not only are we telling children how to think and do things that they're probably never ever use in their life, but we're not even asking them who they truly are. And we're not even recognizing who they truly are. And then we want to know why they're out of control, why they're hurting each other, why they're shooting each other. It is so ludicrous. So the Harmony Power program, basically children have 33 days to change the world. And on the 33rd day, through their gifts and passions and the things that they want to do, they get a Harmony Power Award for what they did. And it's noted in the report card as a permanent record, just like if they get suspended, expelled, go to jail. Right. So if every year they get an award, it transforms an entire community. And guess what? It doesn't cost anything. It's a piece of paper.
So, John, I wanted to touch base on the connection between what you're talking about, and I'm going to tie this into my support for Bobby Kennedy for president, because I know Bobby and his platform very well. I know the platform extremely well. I've spent over 1,000 hours getting to know it, and there are so many elements to it, and they're almost all rooted in this fundamental idea that we all do have value. And so Bobby understands that through his own journey, his own trauma experiences in life, and how he brings that to the point of solutions today. And that was, I think, a big part of the basis for his forming the Children's Health Defense Fund. And children are truly being ignored today more than ever through perhaps all different avenues, including social media, which, this idea of the phone, I have this phone here, and it was told to me years ago that this phone would help me stay connected to the world. And in reality, what it's done, especially for the youth, is it has brought about the exact opposite effect. It has created disconnection from the world. And we're left now with 4 in 10, 40% of children today suffer from depression. 1 out of 5, 20%, experience suicidal thoughts. We have anxiety, ADHD, all kinds of other developmental disorders, and then obesity, which comes from emotional issues at times as well, not always, but all of this stuff is going off the charts exponentially, and we're raising a generation of kids with without the tools that they need to thrive in the world, and even our IQs are dropping, and so this is all tied into this concept of what message are we giving to our youth, right? We can't hand it to them. We have to, like you did as a youth. You were presented with this adversity, and you understood the value of developing the skills within yourself, and that's what empowered you. How do you, with your organization, empower youth to experience their own true value in the world? Is that a fair question for you?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of things. So first of all, I want to say that I'm proud to support this campaign as I mentioned before, not when we're on the air. I'm a leadership resource for anti-bullying for all New York City public schools. That's in contract a few months ago. And now I'm that for the campaign. So just whoever's listening, I've made that choice to help the campaign with this information. Let's just look at, I've been around the clock since yesterday, researching and learning as much about, Bobby Kennedy, his father, his uncle. I really wanted to look back in the history. I remember it, but I wanted to really have that recall and understand how passionate. I realized that Robert Kennedy right now, he's the only one out of the three candidates running that's even talking about children. Like, that's just a reality check. I mean,
this is nothing new.
Right.
Well, excuse me. He's been doing this for decades. So this is not a political charade for him. No. This is who he has always been.
So to me, whoever's listening, the most important asset that we have is our children. And no matter what we try to fix on our political agendas right now, we're going to have the same problem in 20 years because we haven't fixed the root, which is the children, right? So the other thing is what I've also realized, and I'm going to share things that I believe in from what I've seen traveling with the anti-bullying, with the crisis, right? I was on the air and Christie was donating, not donating, he's shifting money to help the anti-bully cause, and which was good at the time. But to me, it was like a Band-Aid. Because I'm like, look, these kids are eating crap in the schools. They're eating, it's fake food. They're eating horrible, their brains are not being nourished. Their heart is not being nourished, right? So, and they're taking activities out of the schools where they're not moving. And then they're in a classroom learning a whole bunch of things they're never ever going to use, which they're not even good at. And they're trying to meet a state's testing standard, which the teachers are trying to keep their jobs by force feeding this information and getting them to get the scores. And they're not even who they are. Like, it's
structural.
It's paralyzing the children. That's why the obesity has gone up multiple times from when I was a child. When I was a child, you ran out and played. So I can't blame the cell phone thing. I put my cell phone down. Tell my kids, put the phone down. My one kid is playing basketball. The other kid's working at it. Like, there's a balance. The phones are great. You can connect with the world when you learn how to connect with yourself. But if you're not even connected to you, then you're never even where you are to connect to the world. That's the whole thing. These children are so like, they're lethargic. When I travel, they're kind of like just complacent. They're kind of like, I have to wake them up, fortunately, because I come alive with my stories and my history, and then they see me do stuff on the stage. But truthfully, I shouldn't have to do that. They should be entertained with who they are.
Well, that's the thing. And when we're talking about experiencing value from within oneself, then we need not get it from outside. So we don't have to fill that void with food or with drugs, even whether they be prescription or otherwise. We don't need that. We have the value within ourselves. But what's happened is so many millions of our youth have gone off in that direction of sort of not being fulfilled and looking for that fulfillment elsewhere. And of course, social media feeds right into that addiction, right? That disconnection from that sense of worth and one human being talking to another. So we've had this massive movement toward, And then we can get into all kinds of other things, like what is the pharmaceutical industry doing to perpetuate this problem? There's the drug epidemic, where, the drugs today can kill people without their knowing it, whether, the potency of drugs and all of this. So these are the next steps for the roots that are corrupted. If the roots are corrupted, then this is what emerges from it. Bobby, when he was campaigning last year, and I think he still talks about it, he invoked the San Padrignano model, which is a town in Italy where drug addicted and alcohol abused youth go to spend years of their lives. It's a free government sponsored program, but it kind of pays for itself, because what these people do is they learn the skills on woodworking, how to make furniture. They learn crafts. They do art. They grow their own food. They learn farming, and they create this self-sustaining atmosphere for themselves. They develop that sense of worth within themselves. And guess what? They're not allowed to have in those years there.
Right.
No cell phones. Put the cell phones down. What we're going to do instead is we're going to sit down as a group and talk to each other. Like you said before, get to know each other. Yeah.
I ran for Congress as a libertarian in the 10th district of New Jersey. It's Newark and Jersey City. It was a great run. But what I did was I went out, because I had real solutions, of course, because I already, I have a campaign that's done nothing but help thousands of kids. So I went to, it was in Delaware, and this person had took an old building, and he had vertical agriculture, right, where they're growing food through this technology. And he would take these guys out of prison, couldn't find a job, give them a job, $15 an hour with medical benefits. And there I was with people who had done violent crimes, and they're giving me tours of this facility. And they grow food for local restaurants. They grow this organic food for schools. This vertical agriculture can be in the schools. It can be, and then along with that, having, do something outside the school on school grounds where kids are getting connected to the earth, where they're eating healthy food. Or the fact that we have to call food organic is so absurd. It's saying you can buy this for more money. We'll take the poisons out. We'll take the toxins out, but you'll pay for it. Or you can have the one with the poison. It's become so normalized that I can't even believe it.
And the poisons are, most people don't even know that they're ingesting the poisons. They don't know that
it's terrible.
That the fields that their oats and grains come from were sprayed with chemicals like Roundup.
It is so insane. My wife's a naturopathic doctor. My home looks like a pharmacy, because she went to this school in Arizona, and she's got all these accolades, and she's like, just like Robert, very bright, understands the science of the poisons, right? And it's sad because, look, the number one killer, and I served during the Gulf War. I'm a veteran, right? And I served during that time. I got a parasite in my body at that time. And when you're eating sugars, and you're eating more sugar than you should, or things that turn to sugar, you're feeding the parasites. I had worms inside my lungs. They were ravaging my body. I was in the hospital coughing blood for days. Finally, what killed it was fasting. I had to shut all food down, because even the medicine the hospital gave me didn't help. I literally starved myself. I killed them all. And I was infuriated, because the fact of the matter is that sugar is the killer. Sugar is the feeder to everything. Anything that turns to sugar. People don't realize that. Like, I might have a cookie, but it's like a little cookie. It's not cookies 3 times a day. Don't drink soda. McDonald's is doing contracts with schools. Instead,
and it's not just McDonald's. You're right. It's more than that. There's many companies that are polluting elementary school kids with their lunch programs.
And the thing is, look, I feel this way. Look, I think I mentioned it before, but not on air. I have been training and working with the 1% that people talk about all the time in the city, the billionaire class and their kids and all of that. And then I've dealt with the underprivileged. They deal with the whole spectrum of people. And I will tell you that a lot of these billionaires want to do good and don't even know how. It's almost like it's become normal to them what they're doing. If shown another way or guided another way, they would change their system. I've trained the like Johnson and Johnson's kids, and I had to take the Johnson and Johnson COVID shot. You can't make that stuff up, right? I go on and on with the families, the owners of the World Trade Center, their kids. Or you talk to these people. Many of these people are good people, and their kids still have to go to school. They just have to be their hands to be held as shown a way to make the world better, and they can make money from making the world better. This is what I want to tell. This is what I want people to hear. You can't classify the rich and the poor. Everyone can work together and benefit.
We're going to on our Curators podcast. That's Curators with a K, as in honor of Bobby Kennedy. We're going to devote an episode to the vaccine issue, which I'm really looking forward to. As a person who's interested in, as you are, John, in the true health and well-being of every American. What does that really look like? And there's a lot to unpack there. It's way beyond this episode here.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, and we'll wrap this up now in the next few. I want to just kind of highlight the importance of your work, not just in terms of your working with Harmony Power and doing the work that you're doing and the success that it has, but its relevance in terms of a government policy and how, whether it be a Kennedy administration or any administration, would benefit from having your work as a formal approach to empowering our youth in a positive direction and reversing this, I don't know what to call it. Is it a clusterfuck that we're doing to our children?
Yeah, you can call it that. You can call it any negative thing you want to say. When I've seen it done to, like, an example, when I go into Elizabeth, I walk into an auditorium now, it's not even me anymore. Like, these kids are putting on a show, and you literally cry when you're in it because it's so emotional what they're doing on stage and how they're expressing their thoughts, feelings. Kids even express in poetry their pain. It's like out of a movie what these kids are doing, and it's like the heads of the city look at me and they're still in shock at what they're doing. I come up there, instead of it used to be assembly where I would be the show. Now they're the show. I walk in for 5 minutes. I'm talking for like 2 minutes, and then they want to see me do my martial arts dances for fun. But the whole assembly is what they're doing and the awards they're getting and how it's changing them. And it's like, I'll give you one example. A guy came to my house recently. I had to replace my washer and dryer, right? So I said, "Where are you from?" He goes, "Elizabeth." I said, "Oh yeah, I have a program there. I would always, I got bragging rights." He said, "My program's a mandate there. Harmony Power." He says, "Wait a second. That's on my refrigerator." He says, "Why?" He goes, "The certificate." I said, "That's you?" I said, "It's my signature." "Yeah." He says, "My daughter won't take it off the refrigerator." What don't people get? Like, think about it. Like, it's so profound. Like, who we are as humans is in a coma. It's how you accrue achievements. When you get an award, it's like, okay, I believe in myself. I love myself more. Someone else loves me. And that's what it's about. I matter in this world. When a mass shooter goes out and does what they do, they don't need to be crazy. They were just ignored. They don't exist. So then why should you? Nobody wants to pay attention. That's the truth of it. That's where it's gone.
And I'll add to that I do know for sure that Bobby Kennedy wants to get to the bottom of these mass shootings and
that's the bottom right there.
The mental health aspect of it. It's right on his website. He talks about everything Kennedy 24, right? Everything from healing the divide to revitalization of communities,
right.
To getting down to this toxicity in our youth. These are the important issues to him because he cares about every American, and he's demonstrated that for a very long time. So this is personal to him. And when I think of, let's say, Donald Trump. And by the way, Bobby has referred to Donald Trump as a bully, right? And I grew up in Queens, very close to Trump. I know you probably follow Trump a little bit.
Well, actually,
And
I trained Trump, the guy that made Trump, for 27 years.
uh-huh.
He's in the textbooks at Columbia, closed Trump's first deal. Trump was his best man. And there's a whole history with him and Trump. And he stayed out of the political arena. And I trained this guy for 27 years. And yeah, Trump is it's funny. I wrote this on Facebook. My mission is stand up to bullying and stand for human equality. His mission is to stand for bullying and stand for human inequality. He makes it very clear. Yeah. It's not like he's pretending not to be.
He'll say that himself.
He'll say, I am a bully. He goes, but then he'll go, but you're a bully and you're a bully. He'll point to everybody else. If they're a little bit of that means he can do it 10 times more. So if you have a little bit of racism or you have a little bit, then I could be 10 times more. I could put everyone down. And the hypocrisy of his rhetoric, and I have to say this, and this has been my only political piece, and I'm not going to go into it. I'm a veteran. How dare he puts down McCain, that he's not a war hero? How dare what he says to about General Milley? Anyone who's a veteran that is even thinking about going to the polls and pressing the button for Trump, think about it. And what he's done to women, don't even get me started. Will you have him date your daughter? Give me a break.
We're going to have another podcast, John.
Oh, don't even get me started. I'm going to forget it. Yeah.
But in wrapping that point up, I think the point is the message that I get from you is that there is no courage at all in bullying. Bullying is a form of cowardice.
Yes.
That's what it is. Intimidation is based in fear, right? The real courage is in embracing people, even if we disagree with them. Listening, respectful debate. This is a quote from Bobby. Respectful debate is the fertilizer, the soil, the sunlight for our democracy, right? And, he wants to know, he tells us this too, he doesn't want to know what side you're on. He wants to know what you care about. Tell Bobby Kennedy about you as an American. What is your experience? What matters to you? And he goes around the country and demonstrates that willingness to listen. No one else has ever done that. In fact, I'm struggling to believe that there's only one Bobby Kennedy, because everywhere I look, I see him in another city, and he's doing the deal. He's walking the walk, and I don't want to use my strong support for Bobby Kennedy in any way to diminish your message here today, which stands very tall on its own merit. It's a very, very important message. I think it's been too long under the radar, needs to come out, needs to be on the surface and presented to America. Hey, let's be honest about who we've been as a society, that we don't gain anything by strong-arming anyone, our opponents or anyone, but rather we learn to love and we learn to respect. And that's where that's harder, right? Sometimes it's harder to listen, to know that you disagree with someone, but to listen to them and respect them. It's easy to point fingers and engage in that tribalism, right?
I think it's very, very well said. I want to add to that because I have a thought. When a bully bullies, right? Let's speak of Trump, right? So I'm going to be more compassionate towards his being and where that comes from, right? So when I read the history of Trump as a child, right? So if you're a child where your mother is somewhat abusive and a little off mentally, whatever her struggles were, and a father who's never home and tells you to be a killer, if that's all you know, then that's who you are. That becomes your norm. Then you go into, becomes a cadet and he's a leader and he's a bully that way. So that's all he's ever known. So it's kind of like people behave based upon their experience. It's very rare that people can break out of the bullying cycle, right? It's almost like parenting, even parenting. I was talking about being a parent. We come from this, growing up in Brooklyn, children were seen, not heard. Do as I say, not as I do. If you don't listen, I'll beat you. And then parents would brag about that they beat their child. So
not just Brooklyn, by the way.
it's all over
Yeah.
the world. So we're wanting to know at this stage in the game, now that we're looking at the world through the internet, we're looking at everything that's always been and saying we don't want it anymore. So Trump is really showing us who we really are in a lot of ways, as much as we
There's
don't
a
like
mirror.
it.
There's a mirroring effect going on.
Right.
Yes.
So I have compassion for the
And
guys.
Biden too.
Right. I have compassion for when I see people do that to a certain extent. You know, I got upset with the veteran thing, but they have to learn to stick to the policies of what they're promising, not talk about what wasn't done, but just simply stick to what they're doing and not put the other people down. Having a respectful conversation, not a fight. As soon as people start fighting, it shows their weakness. It's more about them dominating than sticking to the issue. And that's a healthy way of debating. And that's what I believe in. But that's not what we're looking at. And they're not being an example of what our kids should be doing. Like, this is not what we want in our society on any level. We should not make that our norm. You vote in for somebody like that. You're voting in for a norm that is a nightmare. And that's all I got to say.
Yes. Now, and you know, one thing history teaches us, and I'll leave it with this, and I thank you so much for taking the time here today. This is, I really hope that your voice resonates and rises in a world, in a country that really needs to hear it. You know, we're dealing with a candidate and a movement. Really, it's a people first movement that is coming from the center, really, and driving its bus right down Main Street, USA. You know, and we're casting our net from the center. The real tribalists, the extremes on each side. Tyranny can come from the right, and it can come from the left.
On both sides.
And we're seeing both parties.
Right. Exactly.
Right. We're seeing both parties right now they're in a race to tyrannical control. That's clearly a sign of the end of the two-party system. And the only solution to that for the people is an independent who can help bridge that divide, heal that divide, and bring the people together. But it has to be a people first movement. And I pray, as I know you do, that people wake up and start thinking in terms of solutions rather than picking a team, right? Because you can pick a team and you can win a battle, but we'll all lose the war.
100%. And you know what,
right?
too? Most important thing is what I don't do is I will not put down MAGA people when they say, "Oh, they're MAGA. It's terrible." Like
right.
I have very dear friends that they know how I feel about Trump and Biden, right? I like Biden. Trump, he's the opposite of me. So if I said I liked him, I'd be lying. And I don't think he'd like me because I represent goodness and I represent honesty. He doesn't like that. So my point is that, but my friends who are MAGA, we keep the conversation going. And that's what people have to remember. Do not isolate people who think differently from you. Be willing and ready to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And be a big listener first. Let them get it all out. And then gently say what you have to say. If they start screaming, say, "Look, if you're going to scream, we can't have a conversation." Screaming is not having a conversation.
Right. Excellent. On that note, we're going to wrap it up. John, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on harmonypowernow.org. That's the Harmony Power Foundation. Mm-hmm. Or harmonybykarate.com. That's my leadership school in Manhattan. And it's 81st and Broadway. So yeah, that's who I am. That's what I do. And any way I could roll this out, and I'm hoping he becomes the president, so that something like this could be everywhere as it should be.
That's great. I thank you again, and we will talk to you next time. God bless in the meantime.
Thank you. God bless you.